In a village called Edede, there were so many beautiful women. The village was known for its beautiful women, who were very strong and could have many children. Everyone who lived there was proud of this. People from faraway places would come just to see these women and marry them. Among all the girls in Edede, there was one named Kambili. Kambili was not just beautiful, she was the most beautiful girl in the whole village. Everyone who saw her said, "Wow, look at Kambili, she's so pretty." Kambili lived with her parents and her brother, Abasi. They were a small family, just the four of them. But they were very happy. Their parents loved them very much. They always made sure Kambili and Abasi had everything they needed. The village people would often say, "Kambili is such a good girl. She helps her mother at home, and she is kind to everyone." Kambili's beauty wasn't just on the outside. She was also beautiful on the inside. Everyone in Edede loved Kambili and her family. They were known for being kind and generous, and life in Edede was simple and peaceful. The sun always shined brightly. The birds sang sweet songs, and the trees were full of fruits. Kambili and her family enjoyed every moment together, and they were happy in their little village. One day, something very sad happened in the village of Edede. Kambili and Abasi's parents, who loved them so much, passed away. It was a very sad time for Kambili and Abasi. They were still young and didn't know what to do without their parents. The house that was once filled with laughter became quiet. The joy in their hearts was replaced with sadness. Kambili and Abasi had to be strong. They didn't have anyone else to take care of them, so they decided to take care of each other. Every day, they would work hard. Kambili would go to the market to sell fruits and vegetables, and Abasi would help the farmers in the farms. They did everything they could to make sure they had food to eat and clothes to wear. Even though life was now harder without their parents, Kambili and Abasi grew even closer. They shared everything, from their food to their worries. They would sit under the big tree at the end of the day, talking about their dreams and how they would make their parents proud. As the years passed, Kambili grew older. She was no longer the little girl who played in the fields with Abasi. Now she was a young woman, and in the village of Edede, young women were expected to marry. Most of the girls in the village got married when they were 18, but Kambili was already 25, and she still hadn't married anyone. Her relatives began to worry. They would come to her house and say, "Kambili, you are getting older. All the girls your age are married with children. Why haven't you found a husband yet?" Kambili would smile politely and say, "I want to choose the right man. I'm not in a hurry." But the pressure kept growing. Her relatives wouldn't stop reminding her that she needed to get married. They would whisper behind her back, "Why is Kambili still single? She's so beautiful. What is she waiting for?" Even the villagers began to talk. They would see Kambili in the market and say, "Kambili, when will we hear the sound of wedding drums for you?" Kambili felt the pressure, but she didn't want to rush into marriage. She wanted to make sure she married the right man, someone who would love and respect her. She had been seeing a man named Dele for a while. He was kind and hardworking, and Kambili liked him, but she hadn't decided if he was the one. One day, after another visit from her concerned relatives, Kambili sat down and thought long and hard. She didn't want to be the last unmarried woman in the village. She didn't want people to keep talking behind her back. So, she made a decision. Kambili went to Dele and said, "Dele, I think it's time for us to get married." Dele smiled and was very happy. He had been waiting for Kambili to say those words. "I will make you happy, Kambili," he promised. And so The preparations for the wedding began. The whole village was excited because Kambili, the most beautiful girl in Edede, was finally getting married. The drums would soon beat and the songs would soon fill the air. Kambili was about to take the next big step in her life, hoping she had made the right choice. Kambili and Dile's wedding was the biggest the village of Edede had seen in a long time. The drums beat loudly, the songs were sweet, and everyone danced with joy. The whole village came to celebrate Kambili's big day. People whispered, "Kambili is finally getting married." It was a day full of happiness and excitement. After the wedding, Kambili moved in with Dele and his family. She was determined to be the best wife she could be. Every morning, Kambili woke up early to fetch water and prepare food for the family. She cleaned the house until it sparkled and helped Dele's mother with anything she needed. Dele's family was pleased with Kambili. Dele's mother would say, "Kambili, you are such a good wife. We are lucky to have you." And Kambili would smile, feeling proud of herself. But as time passed, something began to worry Dele's mother. 2 years had gone by since the wedding, and Kambili still hadn't had a child. In Edede, children were very important, and a wife was expected to have them soon after marriage. Dele's mother started to worry and wonder why Kambili hadn't become pregnant. One day, Dele's mother asked Kambili, "Kambili, is everything okay? It's been 2 years and there's still no child. What's wrong?" Kambili felt sad and unsure. She didn't know why she hadn't gotten pregnant. She wanted a child as much as Dele's mother did, but nothing seemed to be happening. "I don't know, Mama," Kambili replied quietly. "We are trying, but nothing is happening." Dele's mother frowned and thought deeply. She loved Kambili, but she was worried about the future. She wanted grandchildren to carry on the family name. Every time she looked at Kambili, she would sigh and shake her head, wondering what the problem could be. Kambili noticed that Dele's mother was becoming more distant and worried. The house that was once filled with laughter and joy was now quiet with concern. Kambili continued to do all her chores and help around the house, but inside, she felt the weight of not being able to give Dele and his family a child. The days turned into weeks and the weeks into months, but still, there was no baby. Kambili began to worry too. She prayed every night, hoping for a miracle, but deep down, she feared what might happen if she couldn't have a child. As the months passed and still no child came, Dele's mother grew more anxious. She couldn't wait any longer. She needed to know if the problem was with Kambili or Dele. So, she came up with a secret plan. One day when Kambili was away, Dele's mother brought another woman into their home. This woman was young and beautiful, and Dele's mother had chosen her because she was sure she could have a child. She spoke to Dele privately and said, "My son, I want you to be with this woman just for a little while. We need to know if you can father a child." Dele was surprised and didn't know what to say, but he trusted his mother. Reluctantly, he agreed to her plan. A few weeks later, the woman came back with news. She was pregnant. Dele was shocked, and his mother was overjoyed. It was clear now that Dele was not the problem. When Kambili returned home, she could feel that something had changed. The air was heavy with tension. Dele's mother called her aside and said, "Kambili, it's time for you to leave. You cannot have a child, and that means you cannot stay here as my son's wife. There's no place in this house for a woman who cannot give us children." Kambili's heart broke into 1,000 pieces. She felt ashamed and helpless. She had tried her best, but it wasn't enough. With tears in her eyes, Kambili packed her things and left the house that had been her home for the past 2 years. She walked slowly back to her brother Abbasi's house, feeling the weight of shame on her shoulders. The villagers watched her as she passed by, whispering to each other, "Poor Kambili, she couldn't give Dele a child." When Kambili reached Abasi's house, he opened the door and saw his sister standing there, looking lost and broken. Without saying a word, Abasi hugged Kambili tightly. He didn't need to ask what had happened. He could see the pain in her eyes. Kambili stayed with her brother, but she felt like a shadow of her former self. The laughter that once filled her life was gone. She tried to be strong, but the shame of being sent away for not having a child was too much to bear. All she could think about was how she had failed as a wife, and she wondered if she would ever find happiness again. Kambili spent many months at her brother Abasi's house, feeling sad and alone. She thought she would never marry again, but her relatives didn't give up on her. They believed that Kambili wasn't the problem and that she could still have a child. They would visit her and say, "Kambili, you are still young and beautiful. Don't lose hope. You should try to marry again." At first, Kambili didn't want to listen. She was too afraid of being hurt again, but her relatives kept encouraging her, saying, "Maybe Dele wasn't the right one for you. You deserve another chance at happiness." One day, a man from a faraway village came to Edede. His name was Chika, and he was very handsome. He had heard about the beauty and kindness of the women in Edede and decided to come and find a wife. When he saw Kambili, he was captivated by her beauty and gentle nature. Chika approached Kambili and asked her to be his wife. Kambili was hesitant at first, but Chika was kind and patient. He promised to take care of her and make her happy. After much thought, and with the support of her relatives, Kambili agreed to marry Chika. They had a simple but joyful wedding, and Kambili moved to Chika's village, hoping for a fresh start. In Chika's village, Kambili tried her best to be a good wife, just as she had done before. She helped around the house, cooked delicious meals, and treated Chika's parents with respect. Chika's parents were pleased with her and often said, "Kambili is a wonderful wife. We are lucky to have her in our family." But as the months passed, the same worry began to creep into their home. A year had gone by, and still, there was no child. Chika started to grow anxious. He had come all the way to Edede to find a wife who could give him children, but now it seemed that Kambili could not. One evening, Chika sat down with Kambili and said, "Kambili, it's been a year, and we still don't have a child. I am very worried. I need a family, and without children, our marriage feels empty." Kambili's heart sank. She had feared this moment, and now it was happening again. She didn't know what to say. She tried to hold back her tears as she replied, "Chika, I'm trying my best, but I don't know why this is happening." Chika sighed deeply and said, "I'm sorry, Kambili, but I cannot wait any longer. I need to have children, and if you cannot give them to me, then I must find someone who can." And so, Chika made the difficult decision to send Kambili away. With a heavy heart, Kambili packed her things once again and left the home she had tried so hard to make her own. She returned to her brother Abasi's house, feeling even more broken than before. Back in Edede, Kambili felt like a failure. She had been married twice, and both times she had been sent away because she couldn't have a child. The villagers whispered behind her back, "Poor Kambili, she's been unlucky again." Kambili didn't know what to do. She felt lost and wondered if she would ever find happiness or if she was destined to be alone forever. Kambili was now back in her brother Abasi's house, and her heart was heavy with sorrow. She couldn't understand why she couldn't have a child. Desperation filled her days and nights. She wanted to find a solution, so she began to visit healers from different villages. Each healer she met promised her that she would have a child. But no matter what they did, nothing changed. Kambili felt more lost with each passing day. She prayed, she hoped, but deep down, she was afraid that nothing would work. Then one day, someone told her about a wise old woman who lived in a small hut deep in the forest. People said this woman had special knowledge and could see things others couldn't. Kambili decided to visit her, hoping that this wise woman might have the answers she was searching for. When Kambili arrived at the wise woman's hut, she was greeted by a small, old woman with kind eyes. The woman invited Kambili inside and listened quietly as Kambili poured out her heart. She told the wise woman about her 2 failed marriages, her deep longing for a child, and her growing fear that she would never become a mother. The wise woman nodded slowly, and after a long silence, she spoke in a gentle voice. Kambili, your struggle is not because of anything you have done. Long ago, when you were just a little girl, your parents did something to protect you. Kambili looked at the wise woman confused. What do you mean? She asked. The wise woman continued. Your parents were very worried that because of your beauty, you might fall into trouble and get pregnant before you were married. So, they locked your womb with a powerful spell to keep you safe. They believed they were protecting your future. Kambili's eyes widened in shock. Locked my womb? Is that why I can't have a child? She asked, her voice trembling. The wise woman nodded. Yes, Kambili. The lock on your womb is what has kept you from becoming pregnant, but there is a way to unlock it. Kambili leaned forward, desperate to hear the solution. Tell me, please, what must I do? She begged. The wise woman hesitated for a moment before she spoke again. The lock can only be broken if you sleep with someone who shares your blood. Your parents didn't intend for this, but the spell they used was very strong. The only person who can unlock your womb is your brother, Abasi. Kambili felt her heart stop. My brother, she whispered in disbelief. The idea was shocking, unthinkable. There must be another way, she cried. The wise woman shook her head sadly. I'm afraid there isn't, Kambili. The spell is powerful, and only by sharing blood in this way can the lock be broken. Kambili sat in silence, her mind racing. She couldn't imagine doing such a thing, but the thought of never having a child was too much to bear. She felt trapped, torn between the desire to become a mother and the horror of what she would have to do to make that happen. The wise woman saw the pain in Kambili's eyes and said softly, I know this is difficult, Kambili. You must think carefully before you make any decision, but know that this is the truth. Kambili left the wise woman's hut, her heart heavy with the burden of what she had learned. She didn't know what to do. The path ahead was dark and filled with impossible choices. As she walked back to her brother's house, she knew that her life would never be the same again. Kambili returned home from the wise woman's hut, her mind in turmoil. The thought of sleeping with her brother, Abasi, to unlock her womb was something she couldn't accept. It felt wrong, but the fear of never having a child haunted her. She sought out other healers, hoping for a different solution, but nothing worked. Desperate, Kambili entered 2 more marriages, but each ended the same way. No children, and her husband sent her away. The villagers whispered that Kambili was cursed. The constant gossip weighed heavily on Kambili. She was 35, and her dream of becoming a mother seemed impossible. The wise woman's words echoed in her mind, growing stronger each day. But how could she ask Abasi, her brother and protector, to do such a thing? Kambili struggled with the dilemma, feeling trapped between her desire for a child and the horror of what it would take to achieve it. As time passed, her desperation grew, and she knew she had to make a decision soon, even though it would change her life forever. After many heartbreaks, Kambili had nearly lost hope of finding happiness. Then she met Doku, a wealthy man from the city. Doku, seeking a wife who could give him many children, was drawn to Kambili's beauty and grace, unaware of her struggles. Kambili was flattered by Doku's attention, but fear gnawed at her. She knew he wanted children and she couldn't give him that. Yet, the prospect of marrying a rich man from the city and being admired was too tempting to resist. When Doku proposed, Kambili said yes, hoping that maybe this time would be different. But as the wedding day approached, her fear grew. As the wedding day drew closer, Kambili's fear turned into panic. She knew that once they were married, it wouldn't be long before Doku realized the truth. She couldn't bear the thought of being sent away again, of being humiliated in front of the entire village. The wise woman's words haunted her more than ever, and she began to believe that there was only one way to avoid disaster. Kambili made a terrible decision. She decided that on the night of her wedding, before leaving the village with Doku for the city, she would have to sleep with Abasi. It was the only way to break the lock on her womb, the only way to ensure that she could give Doku the children he so desperately wanted. The thought of doing such a thing filled Kambili with shame and dread, but she felt trapped. "I don't want to do this," she whispered to herself over and over again. "But I have no choice. I must have a child, or I will lose everything." On the day of the wedding, the village of Edede was filled with joy. It was the biggest celebration they had seen in years. People from all around came to witness the union of Kambili and Doku. The music played, the dancers danced, and the air was filled with the sweet scent of flowers. But Kambili could barely enjoy the festivities. Her mind was consumed with fear and guilt. She knew that as soon as the celebrations were over, she would have to go through with her plan. She would have to find a way to be alone with Abasi, to convince him to do the unthinkable. As the sun began to set and the wedding day came to an end, Kambili made an excuse to leave the celebration early. She told everyone that she had forgotten something important at Abasi's house and needed to go back quickly. No one suspected anything, and they let her go without question. Kambili's heart pounded in her chest as she made her way to Abasi's house. She knew what she was about to do would change everything, but she felt like she had no other choice. She was caught between her fear of losing Doku and the horror of what she was about to ask her brother to do. The night was dark as Kambili approached Abasi's house, her heart heavy with fear and shame. She knew she had no other choice. She had to go through with her plan. Her hands shook as she opened the door, and inside, Abasi was surprised to see her. "What are you doing here, Kambili?" Abasi asked, smiling. "Shouldn't you be with Doku?" Kambili forced a smile and replied, "I just wanted to say goodbye before I leave with Doku." Abasi, unaware of the turmoil in Kambili's heart, nodded and welcomed her in. They sat together, talking about the old days, but Kambili could barely focus. Her mind was racing, and the guilt was eating away at her. She knew she had to act soon, but every moment she hesitated made her feel sicker inside. Finally, Kambili could bear it no longer. She stood up and walked over to Abasi, her hands trembling. "Abasi," she whispered, "I need your help in a way that I can't explain." Abasi looked at her, confused. "What do you mean, Kambili? What's wrong?" With tears in her eyes, Kambili began to tell him about the wise woman's words. She explained how their parents had locked her womb to protect her, and how the only way to unlock it was to be with someone who shared her blood. Abasi, she pleaded, I know this is wrong, but I'm desperate. If I don't do this, I will never have a child and I will lose everything. Please, I need you to help me. Abasi's face turned pale as he realized what Kambili was asking. He shook his head, backing away from her. Kambili, no, this is wrong. You're my sister. I can't do this. I won't do this. But Kambili was desperate. She reached out to him, trying to convince him, tears streaming down her face. Please, Abasi, you're the only one who can help me. I don't want to do this, but I have no other choice. Please, don't leave me like this. Abasi was horrified. He couldn't believe what he was hearing. Kambili, stop, I can't. This is wrong. And you know it. I love you, but not like this. Please don't make me do this. Just then, the door to the room opened and Abasi's wife walked in. She froze in shock, seeing Kambili clinging to her husband, her dress disheveled and her face full of desperation. What is going on here? She cried, her voice trembling with anger and confusion. Abasi quickly pulled away from Kambili, trying to explain. It's not what it looks like. Kambili, she needs help, but not like this. But Abasi's wife was already running out of the house, shouting for the villagers. Come quickly. Something terrible is happening. Come and see. Within moments, the entire village was awake, gathering outside Abasi's house. The air was filled with whispers and shocked gasps as people tried to understand what was going on. The village elders arrived, demanding to know the truth. Kambili, realizing that there was no way to hide what had happened, fell to her knees and began to weep. I'm sorry, she cried. I'm so sorry. I didn't want this, but I didn't know what else to do. Through her tears, Kambili confessed everything. She told them about the wise woman's words, about how her parents had locked her womb to protect her, and about the terrible advice that led her to believe that only by being with her brother could she break the curse. She admitted that she had lied to Doku, pretending she could give him children, even though she knew the truth. The villagers listened in stunned silence, their faces filled with pity, anger, and sorrow. They couldn't believe what they were hearing. Some of them whispered to each other, how could this happen? Poor Kambili, driven to such desperation. The elders, after hearing Kambili's confession, turned to Doku, who stood among the crowd, his face pale and his eyes wide with shock. They asked him what he wanted to do, now that he knew the truth. Doku was silent for a long time, his heart heavy with betrayal and disappointment. He had loved Kambili, or at least the person he thought she was. Now, everything was ruined. He didn't know if he could ever forgive her, but he also couldn't ignore the deep sadness in her eyes. After what felt like an eternity, Doku finally spoke, his voice low and filled with pain. If Kambili believes this is the only way to break the curse, then I will not stand in the way. But this is not how I imagined our life together. I don't know if I can ever look at her the same way again. The elders nodded, understanding the difficulty of the situation. They decided that if Abasi agreed, the curse could be broken that night. But they also knew that Kambili's actions had already caused a deep wound in the village, one that would take a long time to heal. Abasi, his heart torn apart by what had happened, looked at Kambili with tears in his eyes. He loved his sister, but he never imagined their bond would be tested in such a terrible way. After a long moment, he finally agreed, though it broke his heart to do so. That night, before Kambili left for the city with Doku, she and Abasi did what was necessary to break the curse. It was a night filled with sorrow and shame, and though the curse was lifted, the memory of that night would haunt them both forever. When it was over, Abasi left the hut, unable to bear the weight of what had happened. The next morning, he packed his belongings and, with his wife by his side, left the village of Edede, never to return. Kambili too, now free from the curse, left with Doku for the city. But she carried with her the memory of that night and the heavy price she had paid to fulfill her deepest wish. Soon after Kambili and Doku moved to the city, Kambili discovered she was pregnant, and the news brought joy and relief. She gave birth to a beautiful baby girl, Abike, named in honor of her brother Abasi. Though Abike was Abasi's child, Doku accepted her as his own, and their family grew with the birth of twins, a boy and a girl. Kambili and Doku built a happy life, filled with love and laughter. They became known for their kindness, and their home was always welcoming. The villagers of Edede were glad to hear that Kambili had finally found peace. Abasi was now settled in a distant village where no one knew their story. Though he never returned, Abasi found some peace in his new life, carrying the memory of his sister close to his heart. Kambili, though missing her brother, understood why he left. She made sure her children knew the depth of Abasi's love and the sacrifice he made. In the end, Kambili and Doku lived happily, surrounded by their children, while Abasi, far away, found solace in his quiet life, knowing he had played a part in Kambili's happiness. I hope you enjoyed the tale. If so, please like the video, share it with your family and friends, comment on it, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell for more enchanting tales like this one. Goodbye.